In the heart of Ireland, where rolling pastures meet winding roads, a quiet darkness lingers, one that maps won't show, and most headlines have long forgotten. Between 1993 and 1998, 8 women vanished in what became known as Ireland's Vanishing Triangle. No arrests, no convictions, no closure, and yet the questions still echo. This isn't just a story about missing persons. It's a story about silence, about what happens when women go missing and no one listens until it's too late.
Welcome to Crime Bite.
In this channel, we peel back the layers of those hidden realities, raw evidence, conflicting testimonies, and emotional pleas for help that too often come too late. By looking into these crime bites, you'll see firsthand how broken trust, systemic oversights, and chilling motives can converge into stories that rattle us to the core. If you find this exploration as vital as we do, be sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notifications button. Together, we can shine a light on the cases that demand attention, ensuring every voice, especially the silenced, finds the audience it deserves. Ireland in the 1990s was a country on the edge of transformation, modernizing, urbanizing, shedding the cloaks of its past. But in the eastern province of Leinster, nestled between bustling Dublin and the calm of rural towns, something dark was unfolding. Women were vanishing, not just one, not two, but several, under hauntingly similar conditions. Their names flickered briefly in the headlines, then disappeared, just like them, all female, all last seen alone. Some were walking to work, others were out with friends, and a few were simply running errands. None of them came back. The police had no bodies, no witnesses, no solid leads. But what they had were patterns. This region of disappearance, stretching from Dublin to Kildare to Wicklow, became known as Ireland's Vanishing Triangle. Some whispered of a serial killer. Others speculated about trafficking or ritual crimes. What no one could deny was this: too many women had gone missing in the same area, in eerily similar ways, over just a few short years. Among the names, Annie McCarrick, Jo Dullard, Fiona Sinnott, Ciara Breen, Fiona Pender, Marie Kilmartin, and more. Each name a person, each disappearance a wound that never healed, each case still unsolved. But was this a coincidence, or the trail of a killer who knew the roads, the woods, and the silence well enough to vanish without a trace? How does a region so small hide so many unanswered disappearances? And who benefits from the silence? Annie McCarrick was full of life. A 26-year-old from Long Island, New York, she had fallen in love with Irish culture while studying abroad. In 1993, she moved permanently to Ireland, settling in the leafy suburb of Sandymount. She was warm, trusting, bookish, and adventurous, traits that endeared her to many. But they may have also made her vulnerable. March 26, 1993. Annie was excited. She had plans to visit the quaint mountain town of Enniskerry. It was a quiet Friday morning when she withdrew some money, bought groceries, and later was reportedly seen boarding a bus headed into the Wicklow Mountains. That would be the last verified sighting of her. Theories sprouted like ivy. Some believed she reached her destination and was lured into the woods. Others say she never made it to Enniskerry at all, that her trail vanished somewhere in between. Her shopping bags were never recovered. Her flat showed no signs of disturbance. Her phone call records, clean. The Garda's investigation stumbled. Despite her American citizenship, the media interest was mild. No major press campaigns, no urgency, just silence. And for Annie's grieving parents back in New York, it was a living nightmare. They flew to Ireland, they gave press interviews, they combed maps, but the trail went cold within weeks. Years later, retired detectives admitted they may have underestimated the case. Annie was just the beginning. Was Annie targeted at random? Or was she the first victim of a pattern that would go unnoticed until it was too late? On November 9th, 1995, 21-year-old Josephine Jojo Dullard missed her bus home from Dublin to her village in County Kilkenny. A vibrant soul with a cheeky smile and a streak of independence, Jojo decided to hitchhike the rest of the way. That decision would become her last known action. Jojo phoned a friend from a payphone in the village of Moon, Kildare. It was around 11:37 p.m. She sounded tired but cheerful. In the middle of their conversation, Jojo said casually, "Oh, here's my lift," and hung up. She was never heard from again. Despite the circumstances, initial police response was sluggish. Hitchhiking wasn't uncommon for rural Irish youth, and JoJo's disappearance didn't initially trigger panic. Her family, however, knew something was deeply wrong. The Garda started piecing together witness statements, and one woman recalled seeing JoJo getting into a dark Toyota Carina, driven by a man in his 30s with dark hair. The man has never been identified. Her case faded into the ever-growing file of Irish missing women. But unlike others, JoJo's story resurfaced in 2021, when Gardaí officially reclassified it as a murder case. Her family's tireless campaigning had finally sparked new momentum, yet justice remained distant, locked behind decades of silence and lost leads. The chilling part? JoJo had vanished within what would later be called the Vanishing Triangle, an area seemingly cursed where women went missing without a trace and where fear seeped into every hedgerow and roadside. What could make a woman disappear between one sentence and the next? And did someone in that quiet village know more than they ever said? In August 1996, the town of Tullamore, County Offaly, was caught in the kind of stillness that only tragedy leaves behind. Fiona Pender, 25 years old and 7 months pregnant, was glowing with expectation. She had just finished decorating her nursery. Her boyfriend had recently moved out. She was making a new start, but she would never get the chance to hold her baby. On the morning of August 23rd, Fiona's mother and brother said goodbye after a brief visit. Fiona walked them to the door of her flat, waved, and went back inside. That was the last time anyone saw her alive. Fiona was reported missing when she failed to show up for a family appointment. Her disappearance stunned her tight-knit community. She wasn't the type to vanish without word, especially while expecting. Her handbag, clothes, and personal belongings were left untouched. There was no forced entry, no sign of a struggle, no leads. The Garda began questioning people in her circle, especially the father of her unborn child. But nothing stuck. No charges, no arrests, just a haunting silence. Years later, whispers began to circulate about a well-known local man, someone with a violent past, someone Fiona may have feared. But fear, unlike fingerprints, isn't admissible in court. Her family continued to appeal to the public, clinging to the hope that someone's conscience might finally crack under the weight of guilt. Fiona's case wasn't just another disappearance. It symbolized a tipping point in public awareness. A young pregnant woman, taken without a trace, began to shift the national mood from confusion to horror. If Fiona wasn't safe in her own home, who was? What kind of person could look a pregnant woman in the eyes and still make her vanish? On a cold February night in 1997, in the seaside town of Dundalk, 17-year-old Ciara Breen disappeared without a sound. Her mother, Bernadette, had last seen her alive at home. They'd shared tea, chatted, and Ciara had gone to bed early. But sometime after midnight, something happened. When Bernadette checked on her daughter around 2 a.m., Ciara's bed was empty. The front door was unlocked. A teenage girl had vanished into the dark, coastal night. At first, the working theory was that Ciara had snuck out to meet someone, a teenage impulse. But when she didn't return the next day, or the day after, panic gripped her mother, then her community. Flyers were printed, police canvassed the neighborhood, but the clues were threadbare. The only real lead was the open door. Over the years, a handful of suspects emerged, most notably a local man known to have connections with young girls. In 2015, nearly 2 decades after Ciara's disappearance, Gardaí arrested a 53-year-old man in relation to the case. But just like before, no charges were filed. No confession, no body, no closure. Ciara was full of dreams. She had plans to travel. She wanted a future far from Dundalk. Her case, like many in Ireland's Vanishing Triangle, reveals an unsettling pattern. A young woman disappears under seemingly ordinary circumstances. Law enforcement scrambles, suspects float in and out, and eventually, silence wins. Her mother never moved out of that house. She left Ciara's room untouched, in the hope that one day the door might open again. Not from the outside, but from the inside. Who was waiting for Ciara that night? And did someone she trusts use her innocence against her? On March 26, 1993, the sun rose over Dublin with springtime promise. Annie McCarrick, a 26-year-old woman from Long Island, New York, was soaking in the fresh energy of Ireland, her ancestral homeland, and the place where she hoped to build her future. But by the end of that day, she would vanish without a trace. Annie had made a life for herself in Dublin. She worked part-time, studied at university, and was known for her warm, enthusiastic nature. That Friday morning, she ran errands and was reportedly spotted withdrawing money from an ATM. By afternoon, she mentioned plans to visit the picturesque Wicklow Mountains and possibly grab a bite at Johnny Fox's pub in Glencullen. That would be her last known movement. Multiple witnesses claimed to have seen Annie at Johnny Fox's that evening, alone, or possibly with a man. But none of these accounts could be definitively verified. No CCTV, no receipts, just fading memories and fragmented statements. The police, slow to register her absence as a serious concern, treated the initial disappearance as a young woman gone off on her own. Friends and family back in the US were stunned by the lack of urgency. As days passed, a sense of foreboding grew. Annie didn't just disappear, she was swallowed by something far darker. Despite high-profile attention from both the Irish and American media, and several suspect sketches over the years, Annie's disappearance has never been solved. In 2023, the Garda escalated her case to a murder inquiry based on new evidence, possibly involving known suspects from within the Vanishing Triangle narrative. Annie's case shook the trust of a nation. If a beloved young woman from the US could vanish so easily in Ireland, how many more could be out there, unheard, unseen, and unsearched for? Was Annie's killer someone she knew, or was she a random victim of opportunity in a place famed for its beauty, but hiding something monstrous? Fiona Sinnott was just 19 years old when she vanished in February 1998. A devoted mother to her 11-month-old daughter, Fiona's life had not been easy, but she was on the cusp of starting anew. Living in the village of Ballyhit, County Wexford, she had recently split from her boyfriend and was planning a fresh future for herself and her child. But that future would never come. The night she disappeared, Fiona had gone out for drinks at Butler's Pub in Broadway. Witnesses say she was in good spirits, chatting, laughing, even making plans. She left the pub with her ex-boyfriend, who claimed he walked her back to her rented home in Ballyhit. According to him, she complained of feeling unwell and he left her resting. But when Fiona's family came looking for her days later, the house was empty, and it looked like it hadn't been lived in for weeks. At first, Gardaí believed Fiona had simply run away. Maybe she needed a break. Maybe she would call, but she never did. She never showed up for her daughter, never reached out to friends or family, never returned to pick up her social welfare check. Her belongings remained untouched. Her disappearance was treated casually, and crucial days passed with no serious investigation launched. By the time Garda realized she might be in danger, precious evidence had already been lost. Years later, troubling rumors emerged about domestic violence, about what may have happened that night behind closed doors. Friends spoke of bruises, of a pattern of fear, and a chilling fact surfaced. Someone had returned to Fiona's home after she vanished and cleaned it thoroughly. Despite renewed efforts, public appeals, and a reopened inquiry, Fiona's fate remains unknown. Her daughter, now an adult, continues to live with unanswered questions, and a longing for the mother who kissed her goodnight and never came back. Was Fiona's disappearance brushed aside because of who she was, a young, working-class, single mother in a rural village? And did the failure to act in those early hours seal her fate forever? February 13th, 1997. 14-year-old Ciara Breen kissed her mother goodnight in their Dundalk home and retreated to her bedroom. There was nothing out of the ordinary, just a quiet winter night, a mother and daughter bonding over cups of tea, and the routine comfort of knowing your child is safely in the next room. But when Bernadette Breen woke up the next morning, Ciara was gone. The window was open, the bedroom was cold, and the door had been left unlocked. Ciara had no coat, no phone, no money. She hadn't packed a bag or left a note. Her mother immediately called Garda, desperate to explain that Ciara would never run away. Not willingly, not without telling someone. But early media coverage painted it differently. Another runaway teen, another girl out late. The reality was far darker. For years, Ciara's disappearance remained a haunting local mystery. But in 2015, nearly 2 decades later, a former suspect was arrested. The man had been seen with Ciara around the time of her disappearance. He had a criminal history and a reputation for pursuing underage girls, and he had once confessed to a witness that Ciara wouldn't be coming back. Still, the case hit a wall. The man died before he could be charged. No body was found. And once again, justice evaded a grieving mother. Chiara's mother has never given up. She has held vigils, kept her daughter's room intact, and met every journalist who would listen. And yet, despite the suspect, the confession, and years of appeals, no charges were ever laid. The case remains technically unsolved, like so many others in the Vanishing Triangle. When a suspect admits guilt but no body is found, should the case remain open forever? Or do some truths get swallowed whole by time and silence? July 28, 1998. The sun beat gently down on the streets of Newbridge. It was just after 3 p.m. when 18-year-old Deirdre Jacob left her grandmother's house and began the short walk home. She was a confident, responsible college student studying to become a teacher. She wore black trousers, a white t-shirt, and carried a shoulder bag. She was seen by neighbors, waved to an old friend, passed familiar houses. By 3:15 p.m., she was at her gate, but she never made it inside. There were no screams, no reports of a struggle, no clues left behind. Just the sudden, silent erasure of a bright young woman in broad daylight, on a route she'd taken hundreds of times before. Her disappearance shocked the nation. Gardaí launched an extensive investigation, searching rivers, forests, and farmlands. The Jacob family appeared on television, pleading for information. Posters bearing Deirdre's image appeared in every post office and local shop. But as the days turned into months, the trail went cold. Years later, the case took a chilling turn when Garda received fresh testimony linking a convicted sex offender, known to be active in the area at the time, to Deirdre's disappearance. The man, already serving a life sentence, had reportedly been seen near her home around the time she vanished. In 2018, Gardaí officially upgraded her case to a murder investigation. The suspect was arrested and questioned, but released without charge. Deirdre's parents, unwavering in their strength, have kept her memory alive. They continue to speak out, urging authorities to pursue every lead, however small. But to this day, no charges have been filed, no body has been found, and no one has come forward with the piece of truth that could end their long nightmare. The image of Deirdre Jacob standing at her front gate, so close to home, haunts Ireland to this day. How can someone vanish at their own doorstep in daylight with witnesses nearby and leave no trace? Is there something or someone that has ensured we never find the truth? For years, the cases were treated as isolated tragedies, each one horrific, yes, but not connected. Yet the geography tells another story. Draw lines between where these women disappeared: Newbridge, Carlow, Monasterevin, Dundalk, Wicklow. You'll find yourself inside what's now known as Ireland's Vanishing Triangle. Between 1993 and 1998, 8 women, young, vibrant, full of promise, vanished without a trace. No remains, no suspects, no arrests. The eerie consistency of their disappearances, rural or semi-rural areas, many last seen hitchhiking, most never making it to their next destination, has led to one of Ireland's most unsettling questions. Was there a serial predator hunting in plain sight? Investigators have long resisted officially linking the cases. Without forensic evidence, no common suspect, and no bodies, it's hard to build legal connections. But retired detectives, private investigators, and families of the missing insist the similarities are impossible to ignore. One theory suggests a long-haul trucker may have been involved, able to travel undetected across counties. Others point to the existence of opportunistic predators who knew these remote areas and the vulnerabilities of women without access to safe transport. Some speculate that multiple individuals may be responsible, exploiting the same conditions in a broken system. But the most damning pattern may not be the crimes themselves, it's the reaction. Families of the missing women have repeatedly voiced frustration with Garda's slow response, media's inconsistent attention, and Ireland's long-standing silence around violence against women. Grassroots campaigns like Women's Aid, Stand With Her, and social media-led efforts have reignited public interest in recent years, demanding action, transparency, and accountability. In 2021, Gardaí announced the creation of a dedicated cold case team focused on the Vanishing Triangle disappearances. It was a step forward, but for many, it came far too late. More than 2 decades later, the Vanishing Triangle remains one of Europe's most haunting mysteries. And the biggest question of all still lingers in the shadows. Was it a coincidence, or a predator that the system never caught? If the disappearances of these women happened today, in the age of mobile tracking, security cameras, and viral media, would we already have answers? Or does the real failure lie deeper in what we choose to value and who we choose to remember? More than 20 years have passed, families still grieve, questions still remain, and justice for many was never served. But silence isn't justice, and forgetting is not healing. If you remember anything, let it be their names, their stories, their unanswered calls for help. Let's make sure the next disappearance doesn't fade into the fog. Share this video if you believe every disappearance deserves to be investigated with equal urgency. Join the conversation below. What do you think happened in Ireland's Vanishing Triangle? Follow for more powerful true crime investigations that give voice to the voiceless. This has been Ireland's Vanishing Triangle, the mystery of the missing women. Until every woman is found, we will not stop telling their stories.